Greetings, Sonicstate. It's Eric Persing from Spectrasonics, and I'm super excited to introduce Omnisphere 2 to you guys. We've been working really hard for a long time on this, and it is our first 2.0, and it's gigantic. It's absolutely massive, and so we got to jump into it because there's thousands of possibilities, features, sounds. So we're just going to touch on a few. I can't even begin to show all of it, but just give you a little bit of an idea of what's in there. And this is a really great, we have so many different kinds of users. We've got a lot of people that like to create their own sounds from scratch, and also people that just like using the library that it comes with. And there's something for everybody. So I'm going to jump into some of the synthesis things first, because this part's really blowing up in a huge way. Tons of new synthesis features. And the biggest one, which has been the #1 request since we launched Omnisphere, audio import. So you can bring your own audio into Omnisphere for the first time. And it's super easy. I'll show you the entire process. You click the user audio button here, and you can see the user audio, and you just drag and drop it in, and that's it. That's the entire process. That's the manual on how to use user audio. And then that shows up as a sound source, and you can use even full mixes. This is a jazz mix. Let's listen to this. Okay, so that's a track, playing. Obviously, playing on the keyboard is not a big deal, but it's really all about what you can do with it in Omnisphere. So let's open up the granular synthesis, because we have brand new granular synthesis algorithms, much more extensive, and we can transform this once again, and let's turn that into a granular sound. And I can change the intensity. So it's really, really powerful. I can even change it into a rhythmic sound. Then I'll move the position. Really, really cool stuff you can do. Let's take a little different part of the song. I'll move the start in to a part where there's a horn solo. And let's reverse that, put the granular on, and I'm just going to freeze individual notes. And now I'll move it to some new notes. And then let's put some pitch grains on it. So radical different things you can do. I can even alter it completely into a synth sound. So this is that same horn. And so I can scrub along the audio. And that's some of the different symbols in the track, and each of those is creating new waveforms. So it's super, super powerful. We even have something called wild mode, and this was actually a bug that we had that we turned into a feature, because one of the versions we had, everything started freaking out and feeding back on itself, and it started to turn into this kind of modular madness. And so we kept it, and it's called wild mode. And here's the original audio again. So it's pretty powerful what you can do. You can even, of course, whatever audio you put in is going to create a lot of different results. So let's take something like a violin phrase. This is a Chinese violin. And I'll transform that into this. that's all using the new granular synthesis. It's really, really powerful. So I could show all kinds of different audio. Obviously, does radically really different things. But what a lot of people don't know and gets confused because we have such a huge library of sound sources that are sampled in Omnisphere. A lot of people don't realize that Omnisphere is an amazing synth without using audio or samples at all, just because we have DSP oscillators. And we've really beefed up this part of the instrument. And so let's take a look at the oscillator. In Omnisphere 1, we had 4 basic waveforms. We had a saw square fat, saw square bright, a triangle, and a sine. Pretty basic. You could do a lot with those, but that was the extent of what you could do. We wanted to add some more waveforms in Omnisphere 2, and so we went a little crazy, and we have more than 400 new waveforms. So it's 100 times the number of waveforms, and every one of those waveforms is a complex morphing wavetable. So there's many, many, many waves in there, each one of those, and so it's extremely powerful on that. And there's a lot of sounds that it creates now that you wouldn't expect to come out of Omnisphere, because obviously the oscillator's the most important part of any kind of synthesizer. So let's listen to this. This is one of the wavetables, and it's one of the digital ones. We have them organized into classic waveforms, and these are models of all kinds of different synths. Look at all the different sawtooth waves you have. These are models of like the mini brute saw or the super saw from the JP8000 or TB303. These are all separate models. You also have all kinds of analog timbres. So it's just huge. But let's check out some of the digital ones first. So we'll listen to Razor Blade. This one is extremely dynamic and goes through a lot of changes. Here we go. And that's just a sound coming straight off the oscillator. So it's a really very powerful sound. We also have all kinds of things we've done with analog synths where we've taken and analyzed different snapshots of analog synths doing something different. So this is an OB8, an Oberheim OB8, and we took different sync settings because the sync on the OB8 is a really interesting kind of sync sound. And so we took we created harmonics with the sync settings on an OB8, and then we can sweep through those with the wavetable. So it's another kind of wavetable. And we can do like a lot of the classic Prophet VS and PPG type stuff. That kind of stuff too. So it's very, very flexible and lots of different kinds of colors that you can get in all of these wavetables. So that's a massive change. Then you can also, we've done a tremendous amount of work to the unison section. And for all you Sonicstate guys that know analog synths, a lot of you are fans of analog synths. If you've ever used a polyphonic analog synth like a Jupiter 8 or an Oberheim, what happens when you put it in unison mode is you get these great sounds. And the unison mode, what happens is you have all those voices, separate voices they're separate oscillators. And when you put them together in unison mode, you get this wonderful fat sound that's going, because each one of them, they're not just detuned, but they're drifting. And they're all drifting slightly differently. So what we've done in the unison mode now, which we can play polyphonically, is each one of the unison voices has a separately controllable, we can control how much they're drifting. So it's not just random detuning, but they're drifting over time and modeled after an analog behavior. So it really sounds great. If you have just a quick example, here's what it sounds like without unison and with unison. And you can hear the detuning, really moving around nice. I think I just killed Nick there. I'm sorry about that. All right. So let's take a look at also some of the FM and ring mod, because we've also increased what you can do with the FM and the ring modulation in Omnisphere. You can now use any of the 400 wavetables as a modulator in the FM. So that is tremendous, because you're not just using a simple sine wave or a triangle, but you're using all of the capabilities of the wavetable. You can sweep any of the wavetables as a modulator. You can change the symmetry, and you can change the hard sync of the modulator of the FM. So you can do all kinds of cool effects, and that same thing is true with the ring mod. And what a lot of people don't realize with ring mod in a synthesizer like Omnisphere, you think ring mod, you think, okay, CS80, a ring mod pedal, Rhodes through it, limited effects. But what we can do in Omnisphere is a lot more dramatic, especially in 2.0. So let's listen to, this is what you would have out of a standard kind of ring modulator. That kind of effect. But of course in Omnisphere we can track the keyboard. And so you can, it won't change its tuning, so that makes it a lot more useful. So that's what we could do in version 1. But in version 2, we can make a much more dramatic sound, because this is fairly mild. That's like version 1. Version 2, we can boost the signal, so it'll radically boost it, and we can use the wave tables as modulators, change the shape and the hard sync, so we can go from here to here. So that's you wouldn't expect a ring modulator really to make a sound like that, but it's a very, very useful synthesis tool. And super cool, all the things that we can do with it. So let's keep moving on to some of the other synthesis things. Let's take a look at some of the new filters, because we have 8 new filters in Omnisphere, in addition to all the ones that were already there. And a lot of Sonicstate people know Dave Spears and GeForce Software, and we worked closely with them to work on the Imposter filters. And the low-pass filter of the Imposter was available in Omnisphere 1, but in Omnisphere 2, you have all of the Imposter filters, and you can mix and match them and put them in parallel and do all kinds of stuff, and they sound wonderful. So here's an example of what they sound like. Put a little resonance on there, and we got them in parallel. So yeah, so wonderful filters, and there's tuned resonator filters now, and vowel filters, and all kinds of stuff. No time to show any of that, because we got to keep moving. There's just so much stuff in it. And we have tremendous capabilities now with the modulation as well. So many new sources and destinations. We have our modulation matrix. You can see that's grown a lot. And the amount of targets that's available is like unbelievable. So there's so much that is modulatable. We can modulate all 4 effects racks. We can modulate all the granular parameters, all of the FM parameters, even things in the arpeggiator and the envelopes. So it's extremely powerful. And so let's show just an example of, let's take a sound, simple sound like this sawtooth wave here. And I'll go ahead and put one of the filters on. And let's say I want to zoom that up so I've got a larger view. And now I'm seeing the dual filters all together in once. And if I right-click and I modulate the cutoff, check out what happens on the left side of the interface. When I do that, now the left side of the interface shows you the modulation in that panel there. And it brings up the modulation routing. And it shows you the LFO itself. So you have 6 LFOs. So it's really simple to do your modulations, because you can see everything now. Before it was difficult to see depending on the page you were on, but now that panel always opens up. And so it's really neat what you can do. There's so many different connections you can make, and it's just it's ridiculous. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, that's just a little taste of the synthesis. I could talk about any one of those things for a long time. But let's just briefly talk about the sounds, because Omnisphere 2 has a lot of new sounds. We have crossed the 10,000 barrier. Omnisphere comes with more than 10,000 sounds. That means we've created more than 3,000 brand new sounds, and that's just not patches, but it's new sound sources. Very complex things that we've done. We have all kinds of new psychoacoustic techniques that we've done, playing things with razor blades and with electric toothbrushes. Makes a big appearance in the sound source library. That's right, exactly, yes. So we have all these new psychoacoustic techniques that we've done on a lot of different rare instruments. We have a whole new EDM library. There's an area just for EDM stuff. So if you don't want to hear any of the film score stuff, you can just go straight there. So, and we also have a whole section of circuit bending, things that we've done that are really interesting with the granular. They do a lot of neat things. And probably our craziest thing that we did is our journey took us to a secret radioactive cavern in Eastern Europe where we had to get NATO clearance, actually, to go, and I'm not making this up, this actually happened. And we found that the stalactites in this cave were so old that they produced melodic pitches. And when you would hit them, you'd get a melody. And so we got radioactive suits and went into boats and in the total darkness and got these things. And I can't even say what country it is. We're not allowed to, because no one's allowed to know about this. But so we go to some pretty crazy lengths, and we've been been recording stuff for years and years to develop all these sounds. So 10,000 sounds is a little hard to show in a Sonicstate video. I'll just show you a very quick picture here of the cavern session. You can see the little bit of the cavern journey. Really interesting sounds. So yeah, we go a little nuts with what we do with sounds. And of course we have a fantastic, all of you guys that know Diego Stocco, he's been on the podcast. We have exclusive sounds from our friend Diego Stocco. There he is. And so that's really exciting. If you've been following any of his videos about how he makes all of these crazy instruments and sounds, so many of those wonderful things are in Omnisphere. And you can put those through the granular and you can go nuts. It's all kinds of wonderful things. So the sound part of it is just gigantic, as you'd expect. That's kind of what we do. So let's take a look at the arpeggiator too, because everybody loves the arpeggiator. And we've added a couple of really nice little features to the arpeggiator that let you do some things in a simple way. Normally with an arpeggiator, of course, you get right that kind of effect. Whatever you play is what happens. But we can transpose each of the steps now. So you can get those kind of step sequencer kind of effects. So that's cool. But we can also modulate any of the arpeggiator knobs now. So we can take the length, and what I'll do is let's modulate the length with an LFO, and boom, now I've got the LFO over there in sync, and it's and that's a really cool effect, being able to change the length or any of the arpeggiator functions with other modulators. So another thing we can do is on an analog synth. Seems like in the analog world, you're always trying to get things to sync. They're never in sync. But in the digital world, it's the opposite problem. Everything's always in sync, and everything's locked to the host. But there's all these wonderful sounds that you can get with analog gear, like using a step sequencer on a modular, and speeding up the tempo, and modulating the clock with an LFO, and all that kind of stuff. Well, we can do all that stuff now in the arpeggiator, because you can change the speed of the arpeggiation. So we'll try this here. So, and then of course you can modulate that with an LFO or envelopes or random or all those kinds of things. So it's really fun. A lot of neat things you can do with the new arpeggiator in version 2. And we have 25 brand new effects. All kinds of stuff. That's in addition to what Omnisphere comes with already. So that's 57 professional effects in the synthesis engine of Omnisphere. We now have 4 effects racks, including an auxiliary rack. And the aux rack, you can use that as a send-return loop inside Omnisphere. So we've got so many different kinds of effects. Can't go through all of them. I'm just going to show you one. And this is really interesting effect. It's called Interspace. And what it does is it lets it lets you apply the sonic characteristics of one sound to another. So we'll take a sound like this mallet sound, very dry, and we'll turn interspace on, and I can select different materials. So I'm going to run that through, let's try running that through, how about some liquid here, some water. Pretty cool. Or we'll try maybe Tic Tacs bouncing on glass. And here's the original sound again. So that's just a teeny example of what you can do with interspace. There's quad resonators, every parameter in the effects can be modulated, and it's really, really powerful what you can do. So Omnisphere 2 is going to be out on April 30th, and it is the same price as Omnisphere. It's $499, €399. There's an upgrade for existing users. So if you have Omnisphere 1, use an upgrade path. It's $249 standard. If you have Trillion and RMX, you can get a VIP upgrade, which is $199. And if you're sad and you're watching this video because you just bought Omnisphere, you don't have to be sad because you get Omnisphere free. Omnisphere 2 free, I should say. So that's just a little taste, a little tiny example of some of the things you can do in Omnisphere 2. Come to Spectrasonics.net to get more details. And thanks a lot.